day with me. Okay, we're going to kick this off right away. So the thumbnail of this video says, how to grieve the right way. So there is a lot being said about Erika Kirk right now. Now, of course, her husband, Charlie Kirk, was a very public figure, and he was publicly executed. Let's just call it what it is. He was assassinated in broad daylight in front of thousands of people, and it was basically, well, everybody caught it on camera. So now she is in the spotlight. Of course, she took over as the CEO of his company, Turning Point USA, and now she is in the spotlight. And because this happened so recent, everybody has an opinion on the way that she is grieving. Now, if you came here to get the tea on who Erika Kirk is, then you came to the wrong place, or you're expecting the wrong thing. Sorry, hold on. My insulin pump is beeping at me. Sorry, hold on. I'm not sure why. Okay, sorry about that. All right. So we will just kind of start off where we left off. Okay, so if you came here to get the tea on who Erika Kirk is, then you've come to the wrong place. Because I refuse to be a part of the crowd that is going to weaponize grief in order to, I guess, pass judgment on somebody. So we live in a world where we have to pass judgment on people all day long in every kind of situation. But I draw the line when it comes to grief, and I'm going to talk about that today in this podcast. Now, I will just be straight to the point. I do not trust anybody in a faith-based occupation, right? Somebody who uses, right? I would call them priestcrafts. People that use faith or God to make money, to push an agenda, or to grow a business. All right, I don't trust that type of mentality. And there is, right, and it's also a bit hypocritical to not practice what you preach. We're not going to go into any of those things today. I just want to be upfront, you know. So we got a comment here from Nick Green. Do you know Dexter Morgan? I do not. Should I? Who are they? Can you elaborate on that? The purpose of this podcast is to explore grief and what grief looks like. And I'm going to talk about all the things that people are saying about Erika Kirk and what I think about that. All right. So Erika will be our spokesmodel today. We will be looking at her behavior, and I'm going to be making a whole bunch of comments about it. And that is what the purpose of this podcast is today. And I am going to give my own 2 cents about whether or not I think what her grieving, if the judgments against her are fair. All right. Hello. Thanks for watching. Okay. So again, thanks for watching. Thank you for the comments. Everybody who's watching, if you would like and subscribe, that would be awesome. And stay tuned, because we are going to get deep. We are going to get raw, and I'm going to share a lot of personal information that I think gives me a little bit of authority to talk on this subject. All right. So I just have my notes over here. I'm going to move them over just a little bit. I think this would be a little bit better. Okay. Okay. So all the people that are leveling all these accusations, all these judgments, all these, you know, they want to say that Erika can or can't grieve the way that she's grieving. All the people that are saying this, right, they all give a caveat. They all start by saying everybody grieves differently. You can't tell somebody how to grieve, but something's a little off here. So let's start there. Let's talk about that for a minute. The word but is a conjunction. So not to get all technical, but the word but is a conjunction. And what it indicates is that everything you said before it, you're going to say something against that. So when we use words like, everybody grieves differently, but she's grieving the wrong way. You're saying, obviously she's grieving the wrong way, but you're also, you're like, you're going against, you're being a hypocrite. You're going against saying that everybody can grieve differently, because what you're really saying is you only can really grieve the way that I think you should grieve. And let's also say that when you say people can only, when you're saying somebody's grieving wrong, really all you're saying is that you would grieve a different way. And if you haven't grieved over something, someone, a similar experience, you really don't know what you should do. It's also like people saying, well, I didn't really like Charlie Kirk, but he didn't deserve to die. You're saying kind of that he did deserve something because you didn't like him. And let's be honest, again, you didn't know him. You may not have liked what you saw, but you didn't know him. So you're saying, but this is saying, well, what I said before isn't necessarily true. So we're going to explore that, like grieving. That's what we're going to explore, grieving, right? And we're not going to put any buts on it. I'm going to say a lot of opinions, what I think about grieving, but I'm not going to put any buts on it, because grieving is a deeply, deeply personal experience, and it is deeply, deeply unique. Okay. It's also like saying, I love you, but you do this thing, which really means I want you to stop doing this thing and I could love you more. I would love you if you didn't do this thing. And I already love you, but my love for you could be greater, right? Anytime we put this caveat, this conjunction, but on the end of something, we're saying something is different than what we're really trying to say. Okay, so everyone grieves differently. Grief doesn't fit into a script. Everyone says you can't tell somebody how to grieve. Yet, we also say there are specific stages of grief. We say that there are like the 3 C's of grief. We say that there are unhealthy medical conditions that go along with grieving the wrong way. And it's all just bullcrap. It just is. It's all bullcrap. Nobody else gets to say how you grieve. Now, grief is something that I've wanted to talk about for a really long time on this channel. Well, 5 years to be exact. My husband and I started this channel, Diapers on a Plane, about 6 years ago. We were kind of toying with it just to kind of keep memories. And then at about 6 years, we had just had a baby and we were getting ready to leave for Korea. We were going to live in Korea for 4 months. And we decided to kind of really kick it off. We were going to say, okay, well, this is who we are. We're Diapers on a Plane. We came up with this funny name because Snakes on a Plane at the time was like a really popular movie. Well, it was a funny movie, like funny culturally. And I worked for an airline. And so we had little kids. And so we came up with this name. And so we kicked off our podcast. And then just about a year later, our son died. And it wasn't that we had this huge community of people that we knew on our channel, but it was a place that we had kind of designated would be our place for storing our memories. And I said to my husband, I need to capture the emotion that we are having right now, because I know that it will change, it will alter, it will morph into something new. And we will never have this moment in time again. And I want to record us, because when we started our channel 6 years ago, we were realizing through all these travels that when we went back and looked at our pictures, we were missing stuff. And we were missing our thoughts about things. We were missing our emotions and our reflections about things. And we haven't been the best about it. Of course, a lot has happened over those past 5 years. But I knew that I needed to go back to that moment, and I needed to be able to say, this is what happened, and this is what it looked like. And I wanted to see it on my face. Okay, sorry, I've been told my necklace is rattling, so I'm going to take it off. Thank you. So that's what we did. And so we posted just a really raw video of the two of us in front of the camera. And we talked about what happened. And honestly, I probably have more emotion on my face right now than I did 5 years ago, because I was in just absolute shock. We did not see this coming with our son. We did not know it was going to come. It came out of nowhere, and it absolutely destroyed us. But today I'm going to talk about me. And so for the past 5 years, if you look back on our videos, you'll see this progression of our lives and how we changed and how our family changed. And I've wanted to revisit grief because when we posted that video, I actually had a few people reach out to me and talk about how much they needed it. They needed to be able to see someone else kind of experiencing what they had experienced. And I know that in my darkest moments, that's what I was looking for. I was looking for somebody else who could talk about the pain of what they were going through. And so I refuse to weaponize grief in whatever form it looks like. I refuse to weaponize people's emotions against them. We can talk about behavior. We can talk about lies. We can talk about truth. We can talk about things in the world not being fake or whatever, but I will not do that with grief, and I will not do it against Erika Kirk. So at the end of the podcast, I am going to talk about some things that I think are fair. I'm going to talk about some things that I haven't heard anybody talking about. And I'm also going to be talking about some things that I think aren't fair. But for the bulk of this, I'm going to be talking about grief and using what people are saying about Erika Kirk as my model and what she's doing. Okay, so we have a few comments. I really like what you said. I'll take off my glasses. Matthew says strength versus weakness. Absolutely. Somebody else said accept it and move on. I'm not sure what you mean by that. And somebody else said easier said than done. And that is such a great comment. Everything is easier said than done, especially when you're in somebody else's shoes. You can make all the comments you want about somebody. It's always easier to sit behind a screen and say that you know better than somebody else, right? And then somebody else said there is a grieving process and that looks different for some people. Thank you. Yes, I agree that. And rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. You are missed and loved. Thank you for that comment as well. Okay, so the first question, I kind of already got into it, but why am I talking about grieving? Because grief is something that's deeply personal for me. It is absolutely taken over my life. It has taken over my children's lives. It has taken over my husband and I's relationship. It seeps into the deepest pores of your life. It seeps into every moment, every action, every thought. It seeps into your sleep. It seeps into your nightmares, into your dreams. It seeps into every single aspect of your life. I've had quite a few people that were close to me pass away. So when I was 20 years old, my brother died. My brother was 6 years older than me, and I absolutely adored him. He was born with a congenital heart defect and had open heart surgery as a baby. And he had to have multiple surgeries throughout his life. Now, when he died, I knew that it was a possibility that he would die. He was actually going into probably like his 20th open heart surgery. I don't know the exact number. And my husband and I were actually getting pretty serious dating. And I knew he was going into surgery. And I actually said to my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, I would really like you to come home to Portland with me and meet my brother, because it might be the only time that you get to meet him. So I knew that there was a chance that my brother was going to pass away. And it still was so difficult to experience. I actually ended up taking a nap the day that he went into surgery, and my whole family was trying to call me. I had turned my phone on airplane mode so it wouldn't ring, and my whole family was trying to call me. Like, And I think back on that time and I was like, what was I thinking? Why did I turn my phone off? Like, why was I so selfish that I was able to even take a nap knowing my brother was going into surgery? Like, it's still something that like haunts me to this day. And it probably took me about 6 months after he died. We had gone to the funeral. We traveled back up to Portland to go to his funeral, and it took me probably about 6 months to actually say the words that my brother is dead, or his name, and say that he was dead. And it's really hard to come to terms with these events that are happening. And then my father has died, and I was not close to my father at all. And that was a completely different grieving experience. And then, of course, as I said already, my son died. And that, again, had a completely different experience. So why am I talking about grieving? Because I have experienced a lot of grief in my life. I've experienced a lot of grieving over people that you're very close to, that matter a lot to you, that hold a place in your heart that you shouldn't have to live without in your life. And so that's why I am talking about it. Thank you. Get water if you need to. I thought I did bring my water in here. I probably should go grab it. I probably should really grab some tissues. That's what I really need to get. So I'm going to go do that really quick. Okay, so my really sweet husband just yelled that he's going to grab my water. So I got the tissues. Thank you. Oh, I had tissues. Thank you, though. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is one of the first videos I saw that was kind of judging Erika Kirk was when she gave her, she went to the Turning Point studio and she stood by Charlie's chair and she gave her speech about Turning Point USA and about Charlie. So it was just that short speech where she was talking about Charlie and what Turning Point USA was going to do moving forward. Thank you. And so the video was made by an actress herself who has worked in movies in Hollywood, I presume. And she gave a very long video and she detailed, I mean, she pulled up pictures of Erika, videos of Erika, and then she would pause it and she would talk specifically about what she thought about what Erika was saying or doing. Just a comment really quick. Hello, I know we don't know each other, but I hope this little message brightens your day. May your smile take away all the pain and may your heart be at peace. A small prayer just for you. Thank you. Okay, so she talked about how Erika was acting, and this entire speech, she was acting. It wasn't honest. It wasn't real. And that she was just a really bad actress. So my answer to that is Erika acting is the question. 100%, Erika is acting. Does acting mean that she's faking it? Does putting on a show mean that you're faking it? These are coping mechanisms. We all have to deal with coping mechanisms when we're grieving. Grief, again, it's a deeply personal experience. I had a lot of people come over to my house, well-intentioned, well-meaning, that wanted to come over and visit with me. They thought that coming over to talk to me, coming over to visit me would be a good thing. When I was still in the hospital, after my son died, I had a lot of nurses that came. I remember one nurse in particular wanted to talk to me about barbecue restaurants. And for a minute, I just focused on those barbecue restaurants, and we had this lengthy conversation about them and which ones were the best. And after this nurse left, I just broke down that I spent all that time talking about these stupid barbecue restaurants that didn't even matter. But for that period of time, I was able to just act the part, forget the sorrow, not necessarily forget it, but put it to the side and just talk about these dumb restaurants. And I like things that you remember about your grieving process, they're just insane. Like the details that you remember, they're just honestly so asinine. So absolutely, yes, she's absolutely acting. She is putting on a show because there are only two options. When you are grieving, you have two options. And and you'll go through both. I went through both of these. One is you are completely devoid and you're completely robotic and you are just going through the motions. Whatever somebody puts in front of you, you go through the motions. Or the other is that you are completely hysterical. You cannot function. You are completely out of your mind, hysterical, and you cannot function and you cannot do anything else. And when you are not the one where you are not completely hysterical, you are the other one. You are putting on a show and you are acting. You are reaching out and touching his chair like this woman talked about. And that's what you do. You just completely put on a show. There were times, another comment that I've heard is that she's not crying enough or she's dabbing her eyes and there's no tears coming out. I cannot tell you how guilty I felt when I wasn't bawling my eyes out. When I wasn't just completely in a puddle on the floor. But sometimes you just run out. You just run out of everything. You run out of tears. You run out of feeling. Everything hurts and you can't even feel it anymore. And I would feel guilty for not crying. And dabbing your eyes is something that I would feel internally. I would feel this whole, like, I should be crying. I want to cry. Crying is the only thing I have to like physically show. And I just couldn't do it sometimes. I'm going to stop and read a couple comments. Thank you. You're being very kind, and I appreciate your support while I'm talking about this. Surprise Blue Bonnet says, this is true. I remember my own grieving process. Grief isn't always followed by tears. It's just not. And it's just so fair to say that. Okay. So yes, Erika Kirk is acting. She totally is. That doesn't mean that she's faking it. It means she's trying to go through the motions. Okay, so I've also heard, then why did she take over as CEO? Why doesn't she just go home and grieve and do this on her own? Now, I can't answer that. None of us can answer that, but I can make an assumption that she feels an obligation to Charlie Kirk and to Charlie Kirk's legacy. That is what I presume. I also presume that she is the closest person to him, and she wants to make sure that things go the way that Charlie would want them to go. There could be a whole bunch of other reasons, but what I want to do right now is give somebody the benefit of the doubt, and I want to focus on how grief really, really, really does look. Now, grief will always manifest itself. Sometimes it will manifest itself in wanting to work, in wanting to pour all of your energy into something. A lot of parents who have children die end up setting up a foundation, end up setting up like a service where like the whole that you can purchase teddy bears for mothers who lose their children at birth or as an infant, and you can get a you can get a teddy bear that weighs the exact same weight as your child, and you can hold that when you are grieving your child. That was set up by a mother, a family, a husband and wife who wanted to pour their energy into something for their child because your child isn't there. All that energy and love that you would have poured into your child, you can't do that. So that could be why Erika Kirk is making the choices she's making, because she has to pour her grief into something. She needs a funnel to release it into something. That is one way that grief can manifest. In other people, it can manifest as addiction. A lot of people end up grieving and pouring their emotion into alcohol or into drugs. In my case, I poured my grief into food. That is how my grief manifested. It manifested into an addiction to food. And now, when I look at myself, that's what I see. And you grieve again and again and again. The more that you see something, the more that you witness the causational relationship between your grief. And that is something that is real. Grief has to have a place to go. It has to have a place to be put upon. Grief has to go and be manifested in some form. It doesn't just sit inside you. And even if it does, that grief takes hold in some way. We have another comment. Your words suddenly stop my mind, and the words touch me deep inside. Thank you. All I can talk about is what I know, and I think somebody should defend grief in some way, and that's what I'm trying to do. All right. Another criticism that I have heard about Erika Kirk is that she doesn't cry right, as if there's a way to cry. Okay, so one person I heard said that they looked at her speech. So it was the Turning Point USA Ole Miss event. So in Mississippi, and it's the one where she historically hugs JD, or not historically, but famously hugs JD Vance. And everybody is up in arms about that whole scene. And somebody sat and poured through the footage. And right before she went on stage, she put something in her eye. And this person is claiming that she put tears in her eye, and that Hollywood actors do it all the time before they're about to do a scene. And she put tears in her eye. So I'm going to be a little bit mean for a second. So I don't know if this person just wanted to be an absolute jerk. I don't know if this person is just stupid, but she didn't cry during the entire event. Erika Kirk is not somebody who gets up on stage and lets tears roll down her face, which is why you would need to put tears in your eye, right? You would need to have this outpouring, right, of tears if you were going to put tears in your eye. I literally just this morning watched that entire speech. It was 30 minutes long. Not one tear leaves her eye. She does not have tears on her face during that entire speech. So absolutely, like, just cruel to if you want to be talking about like searching for views, like, and just be like a jerk, like that right there is a great experience, is a great explanation of that. They put glycerin, not tears. Yeah, I'm not sure what the technical term is, but a correction, they put glycerin, not tears in their eyes. All I can say is that she didn't have tears on her face during that entire speech. She did dab her eyes, yes, but the tears were not rolling down her face. I'm not a very good friend of yours. May I know your name? No, I'm not. I'm not sharing any personal details. Thank you, though. All right. Another person I saw said that she's always dabbing right here. She's always dabbing on the corners of her eyes, and that tears don't come out of these edges of your eyes. They only come from your tear ducts. As somebody who has spent a lot of time crying, tears come from your eyes. They can come from here. They can come from ear, here. They can literally pour out of your eyes. If you've ever heard the phrase, tears welling up in your eyes, that's what welling up, a well fills up with water. That's what that word means. And the tears can come from anywhere. They can come from any side of your eyes, any place in your eyes. That's where tears come from. And I spend a lot of time this week reflecting. It's one of the things I paid particular notice to is I have had tears come from this portion of my eye. Tears can literally come from anywhere in your eye. So once again, is this person this is a different person, not the same person that critiqued whatever she was putting in her eye or whatever she was doing with her eyes. This was a different person. And once again, just completely not true and not a fair assessment. Tears can come from anywhere in your eyes. They do come from anywhere in your eyes, and people will cry differently depending on the shape of their eye, or the tears may come out differently depending on the shape of their eye. But I absolutely can attest. You can go find something to make yourself cry about and see where the tears come out of your own eyes. But that it's just ridiculous. It's just absolutely ridiculous to say where tears come out of your eyes, because they come out everywhere. Also, she transitions from talking to crying too fast or too slow. This goes back to the whole acting bit of it, or just trying to keep your composure so that you can get through the thing that you have to get through, whether it's a conversation, whether it's a thought, whether it's a speech that you have to give. You do what you have to do and you transition. It's actually, I have found, when you're not hysterical, right? When you're in this robotic phase where you're trying to get through something, you definitely can say, you can break that kind of seam when you're trying to get through something and a thought. And I saw it. I witnessed it this morning in her Ole Miss speech, where you can tell something triggered that grief, and she just shut it down. She just shut it down so she could get through the speech. That is human. That is absolutely human. I can't tell you how many times I've been talking to my kids or trying to teach my children about something, and it will trigger emotion for me, and I will just repress it. I will just repress it to get through it. A quick comment for me, I think it was anger. I was angry for so long. Sometimes all I feel is anger. Sometimes I have no tears. I don't judge her because I see the way I grieve and because I don't understand her. Oh, the anger. The anger is something that I want to talk about when it comes to forgiveness, which is actually next on my list. So I looked up forgiveness today. And I'm not saying that like the official definition is what we should ever go by when it comes to determining what something is or what something isn't. But I do think that forgiveness is based off of a general consensus, right? Sorry, dictionary definitions are based off of a general consensus. And so that's where we get our definitions of things. So I thought it'd be fair to read what that definition is in relation to what we're seeing from Erika Kirk. So the second definition of forgiveness, the official definition is the action or process of forgiving or being forgiven. Obviously, that's not going to give us any context or explanation, right? Because forgiveness is an act of something. But from like psychology definition, the meaning of forgiveness is the conscious and deliberate decision to release resentment and anger towards someone who has wronged you, regardless of whether or not they deserve it. It does not mean to forget. It does not mean to condone. It doesn't mean to reconcile. It's an internal process that allows you to not be bitter. Personally, I think it's not fair to make a decision about forgiveness in a moment of grief. I don't think you should be forced to make decisions when you're grieving. I don't think you can make decisions when you're grieving. I think you can make everyday decisions, but something of a magnitude has to be, of a magnitude like this has to be processed. I, again, can only speak to myself, and I'm not making judgments on whether Erika Kirk should forgive the person who killed her husband or not. What I can say is that I think before you make statements just give yourself time to grieve. I think grieving and forgiveness are not compatible. And so I do want to talk about anger, because anger is absolutely a part of the grieving process, anger over something happening. And this will go more into what I talk about at the end of the stream, which is what is fair or what isn't fair in relation to this whole trying to make assessments about who Erika Kirk is or what she's doing or whether it's right or not. Though these are separate issues, and anger and forgiveness are absolutely part of the grieving process. I just don't know that they come immediate, or if they come at all. Man, I will tell you, there are things that happened that I'm not forgiving. I want to be a Christian. I want to be a follower of Christ, but I just don't think that it comes like that. I don't think we can say words and then those words manifest that thing happening. That is a critique that I have. And I think what matters in regards to this, when we talk about grieving or we talk about honoring somebody's grief, is if you haven't reached a moment in your life where you're just willing to forgive, or you're willing to say those words, or you're willing to just say, hey, I forgive. It's okay if you haven't done that. And I'm saying that, and maybe you might think I don't have the authority to say that. I say that from a person who, when it comes to grief, whatever you do is the right thing. This has become my mantra when I come to other people that are also grieving, is whatever choices you are choosing to make is the right thing. And we'll probably talk about that a little bit more in a minute. All right. Okay. So we talked about this a little bit, but taking over as the CEO of Turning Point USA, right? We talked about grief manifesting itself in some form. Whatever you expect Erika Kirk to do or say or be or act is not fair. Whatever you think she should be doing, it doesn't really matter. Whatever you think she should be thinking or feeling or acting or saying, it doesn't really matter. You don't know, because you are not her. You're not in her shoes. You're not in her life. You're not in her business. You're not in her occupation. You're just somebody else, and you have your own life to live. So after, it was probably about 6 months after my son died, I was sitting at church in a Sunday school class, and it was just the women. And I don't even remember what the lesson was on, but the discussion, it must have been something about doing hard. Yes. It was about doing hard things and being thankful for our trials, because Christians love to talk about how we should always be thankful for all the things that God gives us, even when they're hard and terrible and horrible. And even when bad things happen to good people, we should stand up and we should say, well, I'm grateful for this. Well, I think that's a bunch of bull crap. And you don't have to be thankful for the terrible things that happen to you. You can learn from them. You can appreciate the lessons in life that they've taught you. But no, you don't have to be like grateful and say, yes, God, give me more terrible things in my life. I also think that God doesn't test us. I don't think God's up there saying, I need to knock this person down because they're having a good life or they're having a good moment in life. I don't think God works that way. I don't believe God works that way. I don't believe that God is testing us and giving, like, I know that we have the Bible story of Jonah and the whale. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care what the Bible says. I think that, you know what else is in the Bible? That Noah offered for his daughters to be brutally abused so that he could get out of something. And he was the most righteous person in Sodom and Gomorrah. Sorry, not Noah. Sorry. There's a lot to talk about, and it takes a big toll on a person. You talk about things that's heavy, so I might be getting names and situations wrong. But what I have to say is that God is good, He is perfect, and He is love. And that's one thing I want to, we'll just talk about it now then. One thing I don't ever hear Christians talking about we talk a lot about, Christians talk a lot about repentance, right? And Christians talk a lot about forgiveness, and they talk a lot about grace. But I never ever hear them talking about love. And love is the one thing that Christ in his ministry on earth talked about over and over and over. And so if we are going to tell stories, or we're going to give examples, or we're going to talk about what people should be doing, the only thing that really we can know 100% for sure is that we should love. We can love people who don't do the things that we think we would do. We can love people who are doing things that might hurt us. We can love people who are acting in a way that we don't agree with. But what we can do is love them. And right now I feel like I have gone on a full tangent, and I am kind of I'm just going to bring it back to my next point, because I feel like I've kind of lost my train of thought. So, try Islam. The story is different. It is all love and mercy. Well, that is absolutely beautiful. I think that when we get to the heart of the Bible, that's what it's about. But it's been translated and interpreted and changed so much that Christians tend to take the stories in the Bible matter more than what Christ ultimately taught at the end of the day. Okay, so what constitutes grieving? Like what is grieving supposed to look like? What is the right? This whole podcast is about like what is the right way to grieve? Well, it's like, what constitutes grieving? First of all, nobody looks good crying. And when I see Erika Kirk and she's got all this makeup on, that's what I think she's trying to do. I think she's trying to look her best and represent her husband in the best way that she knows how. One thing I will say about the Jesse Waters interview that people want to talk about the way that she was crying is, if you look at the tissues in the interview, they all have thick eyelash marks on them. After she touches her eye and she's holding it, you can see thick eyelash marks. So tell me, if she wasn't crying, if she wasn't feeling any emotion, if she didn't have tears in her eyes, why do her tissues have mascara marks on them? Why is her face incredibly puffy? Your face gets puffy when you cry, when you have a swelling of emotion. Why is she wearing so much makeup? Because it's my opinion, right? If we're going to make these horrible assessments about people and determine how their grief looks and if it's right or wrong, right? Let's do the right thing and look at both sides of it. Let's say, okay, well, as soon as we want to like say that this person's wrong, let's look at the other side of it and say, well, could it also mean this? Because that's when we like can really assess truth, is when we really look at both sides of it and say, well, I'm sure it means this because I have a vendetta, or I'm sure, or I've decided that this is the truth. And we need to look at the other side and say, well, it could also mean this. And if it could also mean this, well, then you might be wrong. And a big person would be able to say, okay, yeah, if I want to reach the truth, then I could be wrong. Surprise Blue Bonnet Flower says, God is good despite the evil sin has brought into the world. Remember, this isn't the world. This isn't the world God originally something. And I'm not sure what it says. Andrew says, read the stories in the Bible. It's different in the Quran. Yeah. That's kind of where I'm coming to. And, I intend to do a podcast about being raised in a specific belief of thought. And are you able to break free of the conditioning of believing one thing? I don't know, that in the future. It takes a lot to be vulnerable. It takes a lot to be vulnerable in our own personal lives, and it takes a lot to be vulnerable in the public eye. Like, I would venture to say, well, okay, I'll just speak about myself, but I have no idea what it looks like to be in her position in the public eye and having my husband be in the public eye to the extent that the two of them were. Like that is beyond really. The majority of us have no idea, have absolutely no clue what that even remotely would look or feel like. Okay. So in addition to that, how do you grieve when you have responsibilities? When you have a job that you have to go to, when you have children that you have to take care of? For me, when I was in the really heavy thick of my grieving, I don't know that I can ever really say that I won't be grieving over my son or my brother or my dad and the relationship that I long for, that I long for having, that now is there's no possibility of, right? That's what death brings, is a lack of possibility in this life, right? And this life, despite our faith in God, is all we really know. Like I have these conversations with my daughter, especially, who's growing up, and she wants to know what's next. And I can't tell her. I can tell her what God has told us is next. I can tell her what we believe is next. I can tell her that we have these ideas and even being told like what will happen, but we don't know it. We can't know it in a learned experience. So while I was in the early stages of my grieving, I lost so much time. And I don't mean I didn't get things done because I was so busy grieving. What I mean is I literally don't know what happened. I don't know, for weeks at a time. I don't remember. And it was present. Like, yes, we don't remember. Somebody could give you a date and you can look back in time and be like, I don't know what happened that date. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about waking up in the morning and going to bed at night, same day, and having no idea that time even expired. It just happened. Life moves on. I made a video for this channel where I just kind of talked about how we want to move forward. And I talked about how this happened. And one of the things that I say, it's just a short, like 3-minute video, but one of the things I say in it is, you wake up one day and you realized that life went on without you and you can't remember. I was so consumed in the moments of grief that I don't remember time passing. And I have a friend who went through a similar grieving process, and her mom reached out to me and said, what can I do for her? And I said, take care of her children, because she's not going to be able to do it. And I was talking to a different friend of mine. She was helping me with some sound therapy. And I said to her, one of the things that makes me so sad is that my children, see, look, I'm dabbing this part of my eye. I'm also dabbing this part of my eye. As I said, my children don't remember me as a human being before I was grieving. They don't remember me. Your grief becomes all consuming, and whatever way that you choose to pour your grief into, or however your grief manifests, it will take over your life. And it doesn't, and I think that's the one critique I will have for Erika Kirk, is saying that she's so busy. And I don't think there's any way around this, is that you have to do something with your grief. And as much as I would love to tell anybody grieving, like just stop and live in your grief, live in your moment, experience the grief, and let it become you. Nobody's going to do that, because your grief completely takes over and you cannot think critically. You cannot think honestly. You cannot function. You can't do anything but just try and do what you think is the right thing. And that looks different. It just does. And so grieving, when you have responsibilities, you either forego those responsibilities, right? Whether it's a job or children or whatever. I remember I remember ordering groceries and having them arrive. And I remember thinking that my children need to eat. But I don't remember anything else. I remember thinking that I just remember doing like just day-to-day things that I knew I had to do, but I don't remember like the process of like, I always say this, I used to love being a mother. I used to love just the act, all the simple things that mothers do, like planning meals and making meals for your children and listening to them read to you and reading to them and playing Barbie dolls with my daughters and trucks with my son. And I used to love doing those things. And for a long time, it hurt so much to do those things that I just wanted to be as far away from them as possible. The beautiful part is that I love doing those things again, and I want to do those things again, but it takes time. It takes moments of being able to do those things again. One story I did want to share is I remember the Christmas. It had been a full year after my son died. And we decided as a family, we wanted to buy little gifts, not for our child who had died or a brother or son who had died, but for ourselves to remind us of him. And so we were at the store with one of my daughters. And she was like, okay, I want to get this. And so we went over to that aisle. And then she was like, okay, well, now I want to get this. And so we went to that aisle. And then we went to another aisle. Because there weren't enough things that she could buy to replace this feeling that she had, this emptiness that she had that she wanted to fill. And I remember that was the first moment I remember thinking, I haven't helped my children grieve. I've been so consumed with my own grief that I haven't helped my children process the grief that they have. And I remember just embracing her in the middle of Walmart and sitting on the floor in the middle of the aisle and just crying with her. And it was a really tender moment. And it was also like a huge, this had been a year. It had been a year because grief takes time. And I hate when people say, well, you'll eventually heal or time heals all wounds. Like, time doesn't heal it. Time allows you to process it. And it also allows you to function in a different way. That's what it allows you to do. Okay. So really quick, I'll just say, I already kind of said this, but what can you do for somebody who's grieving? You can just love them. I think just sitting with them is beautiful. One thing, after having a lot of people come to my house and just talk about mundane things, and I'm still angry about it because I'm like, I didn't want to spend my time talking about barbecue restaurants and I didn't want to spend my time talking about dumb things. It's just holding somebody's hand or, my goodness, asking about whoever they lost. They want to talk about it. That's what they want to do. They want to talk about the things that they remember or that they loved or the things that they wanted to do with that person. That's what you should do, is listen and love. And the other thing that you can do is put the date of that person's event, either their death or their birthday or something, in your calendar and have it repeat so that every year you're the person that remembers. I have one friend. I have quite a few friends that remember, but they remember in general. I have one friend every single year on the exact date reaches out to me for 5 years straight and never, ever, ever forgets. And that matters. That means more to me than anything else. that you could do for me. That's anything else that you could do for me. Okay, well, thank you for being with me. I've been incredibly emotional. I knew that I would be. I knew this would be incredibly raw. I have a couple of comments I'll just read. I miss some of them, I know. The power of motherhood. You have to do everything for your children. Yeah, I mean, there's nobody else that can come to it. I'm glad to have my parents. Thank you. I'm glad that you do have your parents. I did not have somebody helping me with my grief, and that made it all the more hard. That made it all the more difficult. I guess I should say I did have a lot of people helping with my grief. I had a lot of beautiful friends. I don't want to discount what my beautiful, amazing, incredible friends did for me. That's not fair. I didn't have parents helping me with my grief. So I thought I might talk about that when I talked about forgiveness, but I decided obviously not to. I decided to move on from that. So, okay. So end of the day, end of the podcast, grief will manifest itself in some way. It's going to be different for everybody, and it's going to look different for everybody. Oh, I did want to bring up one other thing. Another judgment that I've heard about Erika Kirk is how dramatic she was at the funeral, how dramatic she was prostrating herself over Charlie Kirk's body and her hair being everywhere and her laying on his body. I have that exact same photo of myself, the exact same photo. When I walked into the room, I literally collapsed. My feet and legs literally collapsed. And I remember my husband and a friend were on either side of me, and they literally had to lift me up and drag me into the room. And I have the exact photo of laying over my son and weeping and crying. And I will tell you, when you see your loved one, when you see the person in your life that you love, you don't see a lifeless body. You see them the way that you remember them. You see them the way that you loved them. You see this perfect, whole, beautiful, perfect being. And you see them the way that they were, the way that they are, the way that they're so beautiful and loved and perfect. And it's not weird. It's not uncommon. It's not any of the things that people are judging her about. That is the most real, honest, pure, true emotion right there. And thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all the really, really kind comments today. Okay, so a couple things that I think are fair to say about Erika Kirk that nobody is saying. Why are we blaming her? Why are we saying it's so easy and fair to blame the person that's grieving? But why are we blaming her? We're blaming her for the way that she's hugging people. We're blaming her for the way that she's crying. We're blaming her for all these things. But one thing I heard that she actually said herself is that Charlie was ready to die, and I think it's fair to ask, why was he so willing to die for a political party that didn't care about him? They did not care about him. People in power don't care about other people. They just don't. They care about themselves. That's all they care about. And I just think we're so quick to castrate her. We're so quick to tell her that she's doing everything wrong. When she's the one that was left behind. And then the last thing is, I'm actually not going to go into it. I just don't think it's fair. I thought, there's a lot of things that are, which is weird about this whole thing. But I don't want to go I don't want to go into that. What I want to just end with today is that grief is something that just takes over your entire life, and it doesn't look a certain way. I will stand by this for forever, that grief is going to look similar in a lot of ways with a lot of people across the spectrum of like the way that you see the person that has died, the way that you envision them in your mind, the way that you behave in terms of at a funeral. I literally just said I would venture that I have that same exact photo. But what we have expectations for people to grieve a certain way, or when we have expectations for the way that tears come out of your eyes, when we have expectations for should she be able to have a speech, should she be able to even give a speech, right, in the fact that he's died recently, like those things, they're just not fair. And I will not be part of a crowd of people that will weaponize grief in order to try and get to the truth. You can make all sorts of assessments about actual things that happened, actual events, actual timelines, actual things caught on camera. Like, sure. But weaponizing grief, weaponizing the way that somebody cries, the way that somebody loves deeply, the way that somebody cares about another person, that is absolutely wrong. If we are Christians, if we care about Charlie Kirk, if we care about the ideas that he had, if we care about his legacy, if we care about his wife, if we care about his children, if we care about moving forward, exemplifying the way that Christ asked us to live our lives, or the way that God wants us to be, then just stop weaponizing grief and just love people. And that's what I leave you with today. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about tomorrow, or sorry, not tomorrow, but next week. I've been trying to think about it all day, but this has been so incredibly consuming. Obviously, it's a really, really heavy topic. I'll just end with a couple comments. Oh, I can scroll up. Andrew says, I get it that people questioning your grief based on behavior and the facial expressions, and you just want to be strong and collected. Yeah, absolutely. Magnetic Chomps says, grieving my dad is the hardest thing I've ever had to do, and I'm here to help you move past the grief if I can. Thank you so much. Andrew says again, because she gets dragged into politics and public media, that makes the reaction more negative. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I just think there are some things that should be off limits. I just think if you're going to say that everybody grieves in their own way, or there's no right way to grieve, then leave it at that. Leave it at the fact that there is no right way to grieve. Don't say but at the end of it. Don't say there's no right way to grieve, but you're doing it wrong, or but you're in politics, so we can say whatever we want about you. Majestic Chomps says there should be no expectation that people should show more grace to people who are grieving. I agree. And the Checkpoint Professor says, love the comments in here today. There are good people in the world. Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, with as much evil and roughness and hate that there is in the world, it is always going to be louder than the people who are doing good. But our acts of kindness are smaller. Our acts of kindness are better. They're greater. They have a long-lasting impact. They may not be as vocal. They may not be as shared as often, but those moments, I remember I was in the parking lot at Costco, and I couldn't push my cart to my car. I couldn't move anymore. And somebody just walked up. They didn't say a word. Well, they did say a word because they asked me where my car was, but they just pushed my cart. They just pushed my cart, unloaded the groceries into my car, and walked away. I will never know who that person was. I will never know where they lived. I will never know their name. But that act will stay with me for the rest of my life. And that's the type of person that I want to be. That's the type of person, when I see someone who needs help, when I see somebody who is hurting, I want to be the person that comes in and does some act in some way to alleviate that in some way, whether it's pushing a cart, whether it's smiling. It doesn't have to be great, and it's not going to take anything away, but it's going to add a little bit of love. All right, well, a couple more comments. Thank you so much for these great comments. They're so kind and thoughtful. The little bit that I did watch today is really helping me feel better too. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. And those are angels. I truly believe that God sees us struggling and he sends angels to help. I think so. I heard somebody say once, I wish I could say who, I wish I could remember who it was, but they said every good thought that comes into our mind is not our own. And I think that's so true. I think when we see somebody and we have this thought to act like that is God in our lives, and he's all around us, but we've been conditioned and we've been taught not to see it. We've been told that our ego is greater, that our lives are greater, that we have these ideas, that we have these thoughts, that we're the person that's responsible for them. And I just think that God is bigger and a bigger part of us than we recognize. And one thing that has been said about Charlie Kirk's death is that God is moving things to make the goodness greater than the evil that was perpetrated. And I do believe that. I do believe that God is always moving pieces around to make the goodness better, to make the goodness stronger, to make these events stand out more and become more prolific and make a bigger impact than what we can always see. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all the comments. I appreciate everybody listening and sticking with me. I know this was a really hard topic, but I hope that moving forward, we all can share that little bit of grace, and we can stand up for truth when we see it, and stand up for goodness. So that was kind of a diatribe there at the end. I guess just my point is, at the end, I just wanted to say that people deserve to not have their grief weaponized against them, and that's not fair. All right. Thank you for listening. It's a hard story to share, but I found that you know, when my son died, I had to decide in that moment if I would just keep it to myself or if I would share it. And since I had nothing else I could do for him and nothing else that I could share about him, that speaking about him and making him a part of our everyday life, even though he wasn't here, was how I wanted to move forward. And that has been the biggest blessing in our lives, to make sure that our son is with us. He's here. He's in the everyday moments, and that we talk about him as a part of our family, because he always has been and he always will be. And that is how we chose to move forward. And it has been a huge blessing to us. Okay. Well, thank you once again. We will see you next Tuesday. Again, I don't know what it's going to be about. I'll decide in the next couple of days and post about it. But I'd love to see you all again. Thank you so much for everything. Have a blessed day.